Hello everybody, welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Like 3 weeks to go. We were talking before, I'm like, okay, how many transfers you got left?
2.
3 for me.
You've only got 3 left. You mean you've actually used your transfers?
Are we done now?
This is like the biggest
There's
shock of
nothing
the
to talk
season.
about anymore.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Sky Fantasy.
Yeah,
There's loads
just use
to
them,
talk about.
have a bit of fun, do what you want to do. But everybody is massively down now to the last few transfers as we get into the final few game days. There's only, 7-8 days left?
Oh,
Excuse me.
No, a bit more than that. 10, isn't there? 10 game days, I think.
Game days left. Captaincy covered for all of them. Down to 3 transfers. Yeah, doing all right. Did you make any moves this week?
Oh, I lost the will to live some time ago. No, I made some last week.
In the when City and United had the doubles and stuff.
Yeah, I bought the guy last
too.
Sunday. So Martinelli went, Maddison went. I'm trying to remember who I bought. Oh, I bought Alvarez and Diaz when City played West Ham.
Yeah, and same as me. And I've got David De Gea.
Did you do the same?
Yeah, I've got Diaz, Alvarez and Haaland now sitting there from City. And I got De Gea. But you didn't have as good a week as me this week. You only got 38 points. What happened?
What happened this week? Well, I'll tell you. David De Gea decided to throw one in at West Ham. Kieran Trippier returned 1-pointer. Lewis Dunk decided that his team were going to concede 5 goals. So despite the natural passing tier 2, well? Yes, he got booked as well. So a 0-pointer from captaincy on Monday. We got a clean sheet from Canate. Liverpool against Brentford at the weekend. Yeah. No passing tier with that though.
Oh, it's your team: De Gea, Trippier, Dunk, Canate, Diaz.
We've got the same team
so far.
Yeah. Diaz obviously no show. Solly March 1-pointer on a pulled hamstring. We'll talk about Solly. Mo Salah 10-pointer Saturday. Marcus Rashford captain Sunday 4-pointer.
Got him.
Darwin Núñez.
Don't own him.
Has actually turned up for Liverpool's last 2 games, but done naff all basically. Haaland captain Saturday.
Yep.
4 times 2, and I've got Alvarez as well.
Right.
So
you're Darwin Núñez and Solly March versus Karu Mitoma, who returned a 10-pointer for me because he got an assist, and I captained him over Lewis Dunk.
Okay.
And Gabriel Martinelli, who I kept for Arsenal coverage, also with an 8-pointer for a tackle tier 2 and an assist. David De Gea, like the fact that David De Gea got a save tier against us after that howler just makes me laugh so much because he should probably lose his save tier for that one fuck up alone.
I'd be okay if he got that scrapped actually.
And obviously I made the choice on Saturday to go against Haaland and captain Mo Salah. So when Haaland blanked and Mo Salah scored.
Is that true, Suj?
Yeah, of course it is.
It's not true, is it?
Of course it is.
That's not true, is it?
Of course it is. I thought it auto set the captain to Haaland a couple of days earlier, and I hadn't. And Sky defaults. I thought it defaulted to whoever you had captained last from your team that played on the day.
Player.
But I only found out afterwards it's the most expensive player. So Salah, I had captaincy on Saturday over Haaland.
Because you missed the deadline that didn't even have an early kickoff anyway.
I missed the deadline in the sense that I thought I'd already captained
celebrating
Haaland.
the coronation, weren't you?
Oh, something along those lines. Not. So I ended up, but my 2 Salah was luck. Mitoma was a choice. I decided to go with a bigger upside than the safety of Dunk.
Fair enough, that's worked.
And it worked out massively, like 5 versus it doubled up 10 points. So I got 59 points, up to 268, which is, I'm not making the ground I want to, but the gap to the top 100 is closing. Like it's 54 points now with 10 days to go. And I'm well set. Like I don't have any injury issues or what have you. I've got 3 transfers left. I'd earmarked going into Brighton and City for an extra player from each for the 3-for-1 at the end, same as you. And the 3rd transfer that I had was for emergencies. But the one player that I knew in my team that's highly likely to now miss out at some point was Alvarez. I felt like if anyone's going to get dropped eventually, he's the one. And so my 3rd transfer is penciled in for Alvarez at the point that I know that he's not going to be in the team anymore or feel like he's going to get dropped, which we'll see on Sunday. So I've got the option of moving to another Arsenal or another Brighton on the Sunday, although I won't see that team. But still, I could do that or go rogue. But on the Monday, add another Liverpool if I really wanted to or something. But I'm likely to go Brighton if Alvarez is out. So at the moment, I'm well set. Look, Diaz didn't play, but he'll come back in now, you'd hope.
Alvarez is going to stay. I think for those who've gone for an Alvarez or
even if he doesn't play,
or an Aki or a Stones, just because they've got the extra fixtures on the end, right? They could, in theory, have the title wrapped up the day they play Chelsea, right? It probably won't be the case, but if they did, what's to say Alvarez won't just start the last 2 games and they have a riot at Brighton and Brentford? So now he's gone in, he's going to stay. I'm not going to get to that last Sunday and think, Alvarez isn't in the team against Chelsea, although I wouldn't see it anyway, and think, I'm going to move him when he's got 3 fixtures left, even if there are 3 substitute appearances left, over a player who's got 1 fixture left. So he stays for me. And I think that's the case generally anyway, that whatever you've got from City or Brighton, you've made your bed and you stick with it. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about identifying players who were definitely going to stay and who was expendable. Obviously, one of my Brighton players has to go, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm no doctor, but I certainly saw what happened to Solly March on Monday night, and I don't think he'll play football again this season. So the idea of, we haven't got a prognosis, I think by the time the weekend comes around, we will. And even if it's he's got a chance of maybe being back for game week 38. No, I'm not keeping a player on the off chance that he might be back in a couple.
Use your transfer.
I don't think he's going to play. So I think what's interesting is that's opened up a few possibilities for people who've got Solly March, who's in top, 41%, I think, at the top 1,000, I think I saw earlier. Yeah, 41.6% at the top 1,000. So there's a number of people who'll be listening or watching who have got Solly March. They're 6.9. There's not many places to go, subject to what money you've got in the bank. And what you may also need to consider if you're selling is, okay, maybe you do have 2 million sitting in the bank, but is that going to deny you a plan to get, say, Kevin De Bruyne on this Sunday or next Sunday? What's the knock-on impact of using spare money in the bank? Some people won't have any money in the bank. Some will
2.7 million.
Some will have little bits in
I'm living the dream, mate.
Can you lend us?
Do you want the transfer or the money?
So my intention had been, prior to Solly March injury, I'm down to 2. So the intention had been remove 2 Liverpool players and get 2 Manchester City players in. In all honesty, that was probably going to be remove Konate and Nunez after Liverpool play Villa, and probably get 2 Manchester City defenders when City play Chelsea on the penultimate Sunday of the season. Now, obviously, I've got 0.5 in the bank and a Solly March problem that I need to deal with. For me, I think it's probably straightforward in the sense that because of additional fixtures and entry points, it's still, despite what we watched on Monday, Brighton have 5 fixtures left, and we can't ignore that from a Sky perspective. And Manchester City, we know, also have 2 Sunday entry points that we want to get into. There'll be a consciousness of others of, perhaps I've got no Newcastle coverage for the single game day. I'm sure most people will probably have Liverpool in place for Monday and probably not picked up an issue. There's no real interest in Chelsea. Is there a case to lean back into Manchester United maybe because they also have an extra single game day with Chelsea still to go as well? But otherwise, looking beyond that is probably not too much. For someone like me who's got 0.5 in the bank, March is 6.9, Alexis McAllister 7.4. I'm overthinking it by looking somewhere else, because actually what I'm looking for at this stage is players who have the ability to do multiple things, hit multiple tiers, and are capable of explosiveness. And Alexis McAllister is that at 7.4. And I've had quite a bit of looking at players at 7.4 or less to make sure I'm making the right decision there, but I think it's straightforward. But for others, obviously it opens up other teams to gamble on other players. So my instinct was, although Brighton obviously have the additional fixtures, Newcastle interested me straight away because it's now enter for Saturday for Leeds and I'll see the team. So it got me thinking about them. It's the one single game day left where I don't have double cover. So I only have Kieran Trippier, which doesn't feel like the best call. So the one I've been considering as an alternative to McAllister, and I don't think I'll go this way, but perhaps for those who are struggling financially with money, should well, I think, consider Joe Willock of Newcastle, who's 7.4 as well. There's a couple you could go cheaper, Newcastle, if you want to go a second defensive, if you've already got Trippier. So Fabian Schär's 7, Dan Burns 7.1. But Willock's the one that I could afford to get to with 0.5 in the bank. If you need to go cheaper because you don't have the money, then you're not blessed with options. Brighton obviously offer alternatives themselves. So Enciso will be lowly owned, 7.2 in 0.5% of the top 1,000. I think he'll play the majority of the games of what's left. I think that's quite an interesting one. But Matoma's the same price.
I think you're missing the one that I like. If people were chasing and had a bit of upside and room and were interested, I think Gross is in the conversation. And in FPL as well. Well, look at his numbers. If you talk about McAllister having a multiple range and array way of scoring points, there are numerous times, like McAllister, if you look at it, gets 2 more than Gross does. Gross, if you look at it, is passing tier, tackle tier when he plays.
But that's because Gross always plays deeper.
Sure, but now that Solly March is out, what's to say that Gross wouldn't play higher up and they drop Casado back into right back or what have you? There's just, it's a little bit more punty, but if you look over the course of the season, 161 points versus 170 for McAllister. So there's 9 points over the whole season. It's not like one's been massively consistently outscoring.
Gross did start on a 16-pointer in day 1.
Sure,
which helped.
But then McAllister's just got a 97th minute penalty and one off his arse in the last 2 games. So, how you skin it, there's always going to be a bit of luck there. I've just got a sneaky that there's one player that might be a bit of an outsider and a bit of a punt. And look, he's more expensive, but 0.4% in the top 1K. I don't think rule him out. That's what I'm saying. And if you look at him and you like the consistency of 4-5, 4-5, he is more consistent with his 4s and 5s than McAllister is over the last 10.
McAllister got 22 in his last 2. Suj.
Again, but like I said, it depends how you want to look at it. Late penalty and off his arse. But then also you could argue that he hit the bar and what have you.
He's regularly hitting shot tiers and stuff as well. And should he go deeper, he's obviously capable of the passing tier. So he's also capable of the tackle tier if he's deeper as well. I can't get to Gross, so
yeah, it's a moot point. I get that, but I just don't think it should be ruled out because I don't think he's a bad pick at 7.5.
Those who haven't got anything in the bank, I think, will naturally be drawn to Casado, who's 6.7, who's capable of obviously passes and tackles. You're looking at more of a flatter rate. You're not expecting attacking returns from him per se. We did see him cover it right back against Manchester United last week. I'll throw a name out as a real differential who's done quite well recently. He scored in his last 3, Suj. Any guesses?
For who?
Who's cheaper than Solly March? And he's a midfielder as well.
For Brighton?
No, not for Brighton.
Scored in his last 3. I'm not sure. Give me a team.
Forest.
Johnson?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Gibbs White?
Nope.
Who the fuck scored all their goals?
Danilo.
Oh, okay. Is he a midfielder?
Scored in the last 3. He's 6.5.
I would have thought he was he's a defender.
Not owned by anyone in the top 1,000.
Interesting. Yeah, I honestly would have thought he was down as a defender.
He's the one, if I had to go down,
cheap it out.
I'd arguably, would you go for, if you had to come down from March, would you go with 5 fixtures of Casado, or would you punt 3 fixtures of Danilo, knowing that they've got plenty to play for, and he's really advancing from central positions late into the box?
I would go with the 5 fixtures.
I think that's the natural that most, but Casado is a dull pick for what's left, isn't it?
I think go Gross. But what's the price on Casado? 6.9.
No, I'm saying if you've got to come down in value from March, if you have to come down, I think Danilo's the one. If you had to come down, where there's a real differential option there.
Yeah, there isn't that much cheap shit. That's these days.
Most of it's shite. Let's not pretend anything different. Obviously, there'll be others who've got the luxury of moving position-wise on it. There's nowhere really to go up front. I've mentioned people like Fabian Schär, obviously, if you want to go defensively with it. But I sense from what I've heard from other people, a lot are going to be restricted by going to a midfielder. But, if you look at... We're just going to look at defenders with the most points at 6.9. Highest is Tim Ream. He's out injured. I guess his Stupinan comes into the conversation, 6.6. And he's got the 5 fixtures. So if you needed to come down as well, and okay, is there a potential upside on that? Yes, there is, but they've still got to play Villa away, Newcastle away, Arsenal away, and Man City at home. Don't feel like I'd want to dive into another defensive one at the moment. Fulham guys could be interesting. Diop 6.7, Robinson 6.7, Tete 6.5. Otherwise, there's nothing there to look at lower than 6.9. You're still looking at midfielders. That's my point. And I think those who can get to another Brighton will probably still go that way. And it'll be McAllister for me because there's the most variation in terms of the points returns. But I think the one, as I said, to potentially consider if you have to come down in value is Danilo, to throw a name out there. I'm not by anyone in the top 1,000.
Cool.
If that enables you, imagine that enables you the difference to go, oh shit, now I can now get De Bruyne.
For the
last.
De Bruyne I've got eyes on.
I'm just saying, maybe might need, rather than the obvious, just a second bit of eyes. Does that change anything in terms of another transfer for you? For me, once I make the March McAllister move on Sunday, leaves me one left. And I can't see me getting rid of any of the Liverpool on Sunday when they play on Monday. So it's wait for the following Sunday, and it'll probably be Nunez to whatever I can afford City-wise. It's not going to be Kevin De Bruyne, put it that way.
No. Cool. Captaincy, let's just cover that off, and then we can
just to say, if I went March to Danilo, I could go Nunez to De Bruyne. Just saying.
What? Just tell us why you don't want to do that.
Why? Because I think City...
I think De Bruyne's a risk as well.
I think, that's the point. I think by the time I want to go there on that Sunday, if the title looks like it's done, I don't see De Bruyne playing Wednesday, Sunday ahead of the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. And I'm probably not.
And obviously next week is now like on a knife edge. I think it's set up to be a monster game next Wednesday night.
Next Wednesday
at Real Madrid.
Oh, so the second leg. Yeah.
The focus is now on that. But the way the first leg ended 1-1, it's now it's literally a shootout. It's going to be a really, really intense game, no doubt, at the Etihad. Let's cover off captaincy for the upcoming days before we record again next week. We can look at some of the tiering points if there was anything worth note for people that are in punt territory, because there will be a few that have got 7, 8, 9 left.
Well, I think in terms of punt territory, the easiest ones to look at are the remaining 2 Saturdays and obviously the final day.
Yep. And then we can get into a few of the questions that we've had in on Twitter. On Saturday, James, I'm going with Marcus Rashford. I don't have a lot of I don't have many players playing, but I think I'm going to go Marcus Rashford to cover it off. My only alternative is old safe hands David De Gea. They've kept a lot of clean sheets at home, so I don't think it's the craziest idea to go David De Gea over Marcus Rashford, but I think I will go Marcus Rashford just because ownership and cover it off.
It has a feel of a potential United clean sheet, I have to say.
Yeah.
They've conceded, what did we say, just 8 at home?
Yeah. They've been good at home. So despite his stupid mistake on Sunday, I'm not put off David De Gea, but I think I'm going to go Rashford.
Rashford's returns have been on the wane a little bit, but he does still commonly hit shots here. I want to say the West Ham game was the first time he'd started a game and not hit shots here since Newcastle back on April the 2nd. So 5 of the last 6. 5 of the last 6 he's hit shots here still. So still getting plenty of efforts away. I think that's probably the sensible call for many if you're following the template of the weekend. The only alternative I'd have is Kieran Trippier at Leeds.
I've got.
Doesn't fill me with joy. Feels like it could be one for Harry. It's a tough game away to Villa, but I think if it's Rashford versus Kane, most would probably go Rashford this weekend, just on the fixture.
Yep.
If those have still got Ollie Watkins, I'm going to guess probably not too many do, but if those do still have Ollie Watkins, I think you could certainly throw his name into the hat as well. But yeah, United do look strongest overall for the weekend with that Wolves fixture. Ollie Watkins in 5.6% now.
Very low.
Of the top 1,000. Another one potentially to consider, rogue differential. If you were sitting there with 4 in midfield and had the Solly March problem and had 0.8 in the bank, Alexander Mitrovic is back this weekend and is about to walk into Southampton away. Palace at home afterwards, United away final day. So if you want a rogue differential who you know could be a decent Sky asset and will have next to no ownership, you could get him in and captain him, couldn't you, in that fixture? Wouldn't be the worst call this weekend.
No. On the Sunday, we'll see the Man City team. So you're going to say Haaland, assuming he's in it. Alvarez, if he's not. Ruben Diaz, if he's not. Arsenal Brighton's going to be a tough game.
Got anything left, Suj?
Well, that's it at the moment.
Lewis Dunk is all that
Lewis Dunk, Mitoma, or Martinelli would be my alternatives. I'll probably go Martinelli out of all of those.
I think Haaland will play.
Haaland.
We had, for the benefit of the Sky-only listeners, we had a big conversation about Haaland yesterday, and I said maybe we need to get over this idea of him being rotated. If he's just fit, he just plays.
On the Monday night, it will be Mo Salah for me. I've got backup of Konate should Mo Salah not play.
I might go Núñez if he starts Monday. He probably won't now, I've said that. But I feel like that's the one where I'd be quite keen and tempted to punt against. I do think you could take Haaland on within City on Sunday as well, with the likes of Diaz. They'll certainly hit the passing tier at Goodison and stuff if they're playing. And obviously the Arsenal assets as well. I think Martinelli, I know Odegaard's the one who got the real returns recently, but Martinelli would be the one I'd be keen to kind
still
of take
ticks
on
along
with
really
people
nicely, Martinelli.
Still have, actually, yeah. But again, there's probably not huge ownership within that Arsenal midfield now. Martinelli is down to 36.9% in the top 1,000. Martin Odegaard, 10.1%. And Bukayo Saka down to 24.1%. So, of course, it's the one where the least ownership is Martin Odegaard, who, I sold prior to Chelsea. 3 in the last 2. Yeah, there we go. Story of the season. Yeah, I might go Núñez over Salah Monday. Just I feel like that's one I'd be very comfortable to take.
Well, you'll see if he's in the team, right?
Yeah,
so obviously only if he starts.
Yeah, of course. He's bust on Salah because I'm not a complete idiot. But if Núñez is in the team, I might take that one on. I wouldn't go Konate or Van Dijk or Trent over Salah on Monday. Salah's the obvious answer for most people.
What's your thoughts on Thursday? Newcastle,
Next
Brighton.
Week?
Trippier versus Dunk versus an attacking Brighton. Mitoma, March, McAllister.
I'd arguably go McAllister if I've got.
Yeah, I think I'd go Mitoma. I think I want to still punt the attacking upside of Brighton.
I just don't see Brighton keeping a clean sheet in that.
Yeah, or Newcastle.
Well, I think
Newcastle more likely than Brighton.
Newcastle more of a chance, but
it just takes one
it's
goal.
It's a 7-pointer for Trips. It's not going to hit anything else.
Mitoma could go big.
That said, it would probably be directly up against Mitoma, so there's more of a chance going up against a player like that he could nick a tackle tier out of it. But my instinct now would be if I buy McAllister, that's probably what I'll do.
Cool. I'm going to be going Mitoma, assuming he's in the team, but then having the backup of Dunk or Trippier, I'm not overly concerned or worried. Cool. The weekend's action, I mean, there would have been a lot of tears and a lot of shot tears and all sorts of stuff because of the mental state of the results, James. Was there anything that caught your eye that we should share and think about?
Just a couple of bits first from the remaining midweek games from last week. Interesting, Diop and Adebayo both passing tier at Liverpool last week. You would not expect to see that. Paulini is very much back in the tackles, 7 at Anfield last week. We do expect it more in a fixture like that. It was tier 2 for Trent and Fabinho passing, Henderson and Van Dijk tier 1. Ruben Diaz, 136 passes against West Ham, was nowhere near the most of a Manchester City player in the last week. Kyle Walker and Rodri also tier 2 in that fixture. John Stones tier 1 just about with 62. He's John Stones is the one to be. I know we'd sort of said Diaz is the guarantee of the passing last week. Yeah. John Stones is the one that's got the massive kind of high ceiling though, particularly in the game against you. He's playing centre back and he's playing offensive midfield. He wasn't just sitting into a holding midfield position just against Rodri. It's certainly in high phases. He was happy to go and get into the box when City got into the wide areas and stuff as well. So something to punt. There was shots and Alvarez. It didn't feel completely wasted getting him in that fixture. Brighton and Manchester United, Lewis Dunk 92 passes, Adam Webster 76. There was a shot here for McAllister, which included obviously that late penalty. Also shots here for Mitoma, 7 tackles for Casemiro in that fixture as well. On to the weekend games. Some good passing numbers for Chelsea players at Bournemouth, and probably expect that against Forest at the weekend as well if you do still have something, although Ben Chilwell we think is going to be unavailable, might be the one people still have knocking about. I guess if you did still have a Kepa, possibly one to put in the captaincy mix for the weekend, maybe. I don't think anyone's doing that.
No.
Badia Shields, Chalobah and Fernandes, tier 2. Enzo Fernandez ticks over great, doesn't he?
Sometimes.
Ilkay Gundogan against Leeds, 171 passes, beating his own previous record. No, not quite near the Rodri numbers during the World Cup in the winter. Aymeric Laporte, 102. Akanji, 90. Rico Lewis got a start, 86. Kevin De Bruyne, even 81 passes for Kevin De Bruyne. Feels a little bit ridiculous. Just the 2 shots on target for Erling Haaland. Clement Longley and Christian Romero hit tier 2 passing for Tottenham. Tottenham did play with the back 4, as I discussed on the pod yesterday. Word on Longley, by the way, is he did come off very late on with a shoulder injury. Is that is every chance he'll be in contention to play at the weekend. Tyrone Mings hit tier 1 passing at Villa. We think that Ezri Konsa might move to right back from the weekend onwards, with Carlos potentially coming into the team at centre back. No passing tiers for any Liverpool players against Brentford. Suj. Virgil van Dijk 42, Alexander 41, Konate 24.
Yeah, very low.
Certainly was, yes. And it's not to say that Brentford had high numbers. They didn't. The only tiering in that match at all was Mo Salah, 2 shots on target, and of course, naturally, David Raya, 4 saves. Nick Pope and Aaron Ramsdale, both 5 saves in that Sunday fixture. Martin Odegaard, 3 shots on target. Martinelli and Saka, 11 tackles between the 2 of them. Luke Shaw and Victor Lindelof hit passing tier for Manchester United at West Ham. Shouldn't be shocked about that. We think for those who might have gone Lindelof, and I'm sure there probably will be a handful because it's quite cheap at 7.5, we do think Varane might be back in contention probably from next week. But I just imagine that Shaw would go back to left backs. It probably would impact Shaw owners a little bit more. Christian Eriksen sneaked into passing as well, 60. Casemiro was 1 short on 59. 10 tackles for Paulinho against Leicester on Monday, just because why not?
He's back.
Jamie Vardy, Harvey Barnes and James Maddison all hit shots here. 8 shots on target between the 3 of them. The problem is they conceded 5 at the other end. Willian and Tom Kearney obviously both scored twice. But Leno did make 6 saves in the game as well. The astonishing result at the Amex on Monday, highest of passing for Everton was Doucouré and Gay, both with 19. McNeil and Doucouré both with shots here. Pickford with saves. Nathan Patterson, right back, might be a budget one if people are looking to go towards a defensive player. Enabler could be considered. Lewis Dunk, the 100 passes. Estupinan did sneak into one there with 62. Adam Webster was on 59 and taken off at half-time. It'd be a right sickener if you owned. Pascal Gross, 87. Casado, 87. McAllister, 67, just tier 1, but also 2 shots on target. Although I don't know if does his goal count as a shot on target. I suppose it does. And finally, Jan Bednarek and Romeo Lavia to passing for Southampton at Nottingham Forest. James Ward-Prowse was in the shot tiers, 52 passes for him. Awani, 2 shots on target. Johnson, 4 tackles. Danilo, just a note as well, 3 tackles in that game. He did score with his 1 shot on target. But there is a potential, because he's a midfielder, to potentially have a tackle tier in there as well. I really don't mind him if it opened up the door to, say, a De Bruyne for people, but I think, as said, the natural instinct of nearly all Sky managers is still to look at the additional fixture. And I think if I decided, no, sorry, I'm not going McAllister, I think Joe Willock could be the one for me. So I'd just punt and hope there was attacking returns. But I can't see me doing that.
Okie dokie. Let's rattle through some of these questions that we had on Twitter, James, because there's a repetitive theme. You picked Harvey Barnes for the photograph, for the tweet. Should have picked Solly March, mate, because every question's about Solly March.
I put Harvey Barnes there as a differential nod to the Monday night single game day fixture, but I don't believe anyone's going there. I guess there's a few will have Maddison. Would you consider captain Maddison over Salah Monday night?
Nope.
No. It's worth saying, just with someone like Harvey Barnes, he does fall into the line of players where they're going to need to be offensive in what's left, and their problem isn't offensive, it's defensive. At 8 million, he's in 1.4% of the top thousands. So if you picked up an injury issue on Sunday, or for example, and you're going, shit, I don't know, let me put it like this. Let's say you had Trippier, and your instinct was you still wanted to get an extra fixture out of someone, and Trippier got injured on Saturday, and you've got nothing for that Newcastle-Leicester single game day, what do you do?
Well, let me phrase it differently, if I may.
I would probably buy a Leicester player on Monday night.
So, Paul, Sky Player and FPL, says, would you rather use your final transfer, and let's just say a transfer, on replacing a cheap enabler, i.e. March, or a high upside pick which requires you to play with 10 men for the remainder, i.e. dead end that enabler that you have, not waste a transfer on replacing it? Will be many a manager looking at going into Newcastle, Leicester without a player if they use that precious transfer on Solly March. So it's a funny one where would you bother or just skip it and dead end your budget player and look for the big upside maybe somewhere?
No, so I think if I didn't have anything for that Newcastle-Leicester Monday night and now had this Solly March problem, I would, if I had the money in the bank, I would go someone like Joe Willock, as I said, 7.4. Arguably, you go up to Joe Linton at 7.7 if you've got a bit more. Bruno Guimaraes is 8.3. Obviously, if you can go to a forward, Wilson's 7.9 and Isak's 8.1. You go into there. If you're really struggling defensively, with the budget, Fabian Schär, 7 million at the back. Now, if you're in a position where you've got 6.9 million in the bank and have to buy a midfielder, it's obviously going to rule you out of Newcastle.
Yep. Would you prefer 4 fixtures from a team like Manchester United or 5 from City who could see rotation?
It's almost irrelevant. You're asking yourself about the player, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we took an example like a Lindelof, who I think despite Varane being close to returning, that he probably plays all that's left, would be my guess, versus a potluck with, an extra... I mean, is there an extra Man City fixture now over United? There isn't, is there?
No, not
They've
anymore.
both got 4 left. So City don't have 5 left, unless it's to feature a captaincy.
Not sure.
But that wouldn't make sense. So, I mean, from a fixture perspective, it's probably still a Manchester United player subject to what you're getting. Because you've got to factor with the City player as well. Is the City player that you're going to get, are you going to captain them? Now, he may offer you brilliant differential alternative where, say, that single game day at Brighton, it's like, I've got Alvarez, great, and he's not going to play the minutes of a Lindelof, but it might equal out if you feel like you're going to take a captaincy punt on him, right? Also, there's obviously more explosiveness where he's the type of player who could knock in a hat-trick, couldn't he? So I think it depends. It's not just a Manchester United versus a Manchester City. It's a who versus a who and what's the capabilities. Take Caicedo, right? To go back to Paul's question about should you just kind of dead it out. Like if you get Caicedo for the 5 fixtures, realistically, what's your expectation on points?
15 to 20.
Ish.
15 to 20. 20 would be great. 5 per game. 4 5
Ish.
per game. Yeah.
Consider some of the opponents in there, right?
Yeah.
Arsenal away, Manchester City away at home, far less guarantee of your passing tiers and stuff, right? So I think probably 15-ish is on par. Is that worth it? Maybe it is, but it's not a mid-season decision, is it? It's a now decision. I'd almost rather have that one player who could get me a 15 in one game rather than a 15 across 5. Does that make sense?
It does.
So like someone like, okay, I'm going to say it, someone like Wilf, Zaha, who in the Bournemouth or Forest home fixture could go off.
Well, I'm going to get you a framed photograph of
Caicedo's not going to go off. That's all I'm saying. If you look at, Harry Wilson at Fulham might be another name you put in. Could he just go off? Caicedo's not going to go off, is he? You know what you're getting.
Correct.
So, yes, of course, if you go for a Zaha, there's more chance of just returning 6 points than with Caicedo's going to give you something, isn't he? But Zaha's more capable of hitting that 15 in 1 or 2 10s, for example. And I would much rather go for that sort of upside, like a McAllister right now. Willock, I think, is a name genuinely to put in the conversation.
And last but not least, James, we've got a couple of questions coming in. How many transfers to hold back for the last day of the season? I may not hold back any.
Nah, none for me.
Yeah, I don't see the point. The only thing, if Alvarez plays every game, then, and I've no need to move him on, then I may have one left to go in and just go crazy and punt someone on the last day. But I don't think I'll go in with any.
No. If you get to the final day and you've got a player who's not playing, So obviously you can take them out and buy another player. Then you gain one transfer, right? You're gaining one fixture. It's also worth saying your player who's left out is not to say they won't come off the bench, so you might not actually be gaining anything, okay? On that final Sunday, Brighton and Manchester City, the penultimate Sunday, Brighton and Manchester City have 3 games left, and the majority of the rest of the league has 1. There are 2 extra fixtures there. We can't guarantee that there's 3 extra games for the said player that you'll buy, but if you're buying an Edison, for example, jokes aside with him at the moment, you probably know that you are getting the 3. Most likely, we obviously saw last week he didn't play against West Ham. But the majority, okay, not the majority, there's a fair few you can probably take a reasonable stab that you are guaranteed the gain somewhere. Even if you've got 2.5 fixtures or 2 fixtures, there's still more gain left on that Sunday than there is on the final Sunday. Unless the player you buy only played once. If they played twice, you've still got as much gain as you'd got the following Sunday, right? So for me, no, it's flatten everything out on that final Sunday. For me, if I had 5 transfers left on that Sunday, the penultimate Sunday, I would use all 5 transfers that day.
Yeah, cool.
It'd steam into anything between Brighton and Manchester City.
Nice. That, James, is a wrap. That's Sky Fantasy Football for you this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back at you next week where we really will be down to autopilot mode, last few transfers, and see where we go. I really want to get into the top 100, but I don't think it's going to be likely. 54 points seems a lot to make up at this stage.
I want to make it in as well, and pigs might fly.
And on that note, stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week. Cue music, please, man child.